Okay, so we are in the live session now.
Good day, everybody. I see we are still getting some more attendees join us. And while they come into the room, I'm just going to introduce myself. It looks like the flow of attendees is slowing down now. So my name is Ingrid Coetzee. And I'm the moderator of the session today. I am, for those that don't know me, I'm the Director of Biodiversity, Nature and Health at ICLEI's Cities Biodiversity Centre. And I'm really excited today because this is the first of our Learning Lab series under the Journeys for Life initiative. And we've titled it Pathways Under Pressure, Exploring Urban Challenges Facing Migratory Species. So before I introduce the first of our very impressive lineup of speakers, both experts and from the cities, I have to do what moderators always have to do and just introduce some housekeeping rules. The participants, the people that are joining, will realize that they are muted. It will remain like this for the duration of the webinar. So if you have any questions, you are welcome to put this in the chat box. And if you wish to direct your question to a specific city or speaker, please just identify that. Otherwise, we will accept it's a general question. The second point that I must just make is to say that the webinar is being recorded. And by participating in the webinar, you give your consent for being recorded. And we do this because once the webinar is finished, we will have the recording up on our YouTube for people that are not available at this time of day in other parts of the world, also to be able to listen in. So just to mention that if you do have a chat box, remember we're on Zoom, so you'll see it at the bottom in the taskbar. As I said, that's where you can put your question. If you want to make a comment, you feel free to make comments as well. So right now, the first thing that I want to do is really just to introduce our first speaker. And it's a great pleasure that I introduce Quibby Brand. She is the Deputy Secretary General for ICLEI, but Quibby also is the Global Director of our Global Cities Biodiversity Center. And she's someone who I know has been very integral in the whole development of this Journeys for Life. I know she's very passionate about this. In fact, she's just come back from an amazing holiday in Africa a few weeks ago, where she was able to really experience different migratory species in real life. So, Quibby, I'm going to hand over to you to do the honors and open and welcome our very first learning lab today. Thank you, Quibby, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. And it is my pleasure to say welcome to everybody, all the speakers that are here with us today at our first Learning Lab, all our colleagues from our organizations and other organizations around the world that we partner with, and of course, all the attendees on behalf of ICLEI. This is the first session of our Journeys for Life Learning Lab series. It takes the form of a webinar, but in fact, it's part of a learning lab. And therefore, we are recording this, and it will in fact also be available as part of the Learning Lab series for others to follow online at a later date who cannot be with us right this moment. So this is the capacity building component of our Journeys for Life initiative. And Journeys for Life is an initiative, very exciting initiative, that supports the objectives of the Convention for the Conservation of Migratory Species. We know it as the CMS, Convention on Migratory Species, by facilitating collaboration between cities that are located along migratory routes of certain migratory species. So we're looking at supporting and facilitating these migratory routes through our urban connectivity that we already have in a network like ICLEI, where there are thousands of cities that have joined up in ICLEI. Many of them find themselves on migratory routes of whether it's birds, mammals, sea life, etc., insects, even all aspects of life, actually. And you find that cities can do a lot to prepare for and protect those ecosystems on which these migratory species depend when they undertake their journeys, which is essential for their own survival. At the same time, we as cities are not only enabling the protection of these species and the routes that they depend on, but we can also celebrate and enjoy the beauty that they bring and the richness that they bring to the lives of the people who live in these cities. And there are many stories, amazing stories of wonderful cultural inheritance, really, that is situated and associated so closely with these journeys. And when the species arrive and when they depart again, we know of cultures that actually have celebratory events specifically hosted as part of celebrating this life that is with them for just a moment in time. And this happens year on year, and this is something that is inherently part of our urban life as well, something we need to protect and treasure and build out. So there are many aspects to Journeys for Life that make us at ICLEI excited. It's not only about the protection of the nature and the biodiversity and the ecosystems, but also about the protection of our own culture and our heritage and our connectivity with nature. So connectivity in many ways. But let's just go on a little bit, focus a little bit about what this Journeys for Life facilitate. It facilitates the collaboration between cities that are located along migratory routes of certain migratory species, specifically to enhance ecological connectivity, promote habitat restoration and protection, and encourage the integration of migratory species considerations into further and future urban planning, as our cities, many of our cities are still expanding and building. The Convention on Migratory Species has demonstrated commendable progress in embracing diverse voices and perspectives, including those of cities and regions. ICLEI has been recognized by the CMS resolution on synergies and partnerships and is a member, very proudly, a member of the Global Partnership on Ecological Connectivity. Considering our latest engagement and collaboration with the Convention and the inclusion of informal and urban settlements as key areas for ecological connectivity, Journeys for Life and this Learning Lab series are opportunities for further amplification and consideration of the impact of our constituency, our urban constituency's role at the global scale when it comes to migratory species. So I'm very proud today to say that we are starting this journey as a learning lab with the community, and there are many, many people joining us from all over the world. Many will join us in our second session, which will be essentially a repeat of today, a little bit later this week in a different time zone. But to you, joining this very first live learning lab, thank you very much for your support, your interest, and your collaboration amongst each other, and also with ourselves as we bring everybody on board to celebrate these magnificent journeys of life that are undertaken by so many remarkable species around our planet. Thank you, Ingrid. It's a real honor to have opened this fantastic webinar series, which is a learning lab in itself, and that hopefully will spur so many more actions in our cities around the world. Thank you.
Thanks, Kobe, and for always injecting so much passion and enthusiasm and inspiring us as we go on our own journey together with these amazing species. So, and thank you also for talking about in your welcome, for talking about the many partners that we have. And in fact, it's a great honor for me now to ask one of our partners, which is the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership. And we have here representing them is Yoon Lee, who's the Deputy Chief Executive from the EAAFP, also to convey a message from the Flyway Partnership. And ICLEI is very proud to have recently, I think we're the newbie on the block, hey? Okay, over
Yes.
to you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, and thank you, Kobe, for the inspirational remarks. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you today, and I want to thank ICLEI Cities Biodiversity Center for creating this meaningful space to reflect and learn together. We are especially grateful and excited as ICLEI CBC has recently joined the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership as our 42nd partner this year. Having ICLEI CBC on board brings tremendous opportunities to strengthen the connection between cities and migratory bird conservation across the flyway. For those who may be new to us, the East Asian Australasian Flyway, or EAF, is one of the most remarkable migration routes in the world. Every year, millions of migratory waterbirds travel thousands of kilometers across more than 20 countries, from the Arctic Russia and Alaska to the Southeast Asia and Oceania. And at the heart of this cooperation is the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership, or EAFP. We are a volunteer partnership of governments, international organizations, NGOs, and site managers working together to conserve migratory waterbirds and the habitats they depend on. We work on the belief that no single country or city can do this alone, and we believe that the flyway is only as strong as the network of people and places that protect it. So, and that brings me to why cities are so critical for this journey. Urban growth is one of the fastest growing pressures on biodiversity. Migratory birds are losing stopover sites and breeding grounds because of land use change, infrastructure, pollution, and climate impact as well. But cities can also where the real changes can happen. When a city commits to becoming our flyway network site or FNS, it is more than a designation on paper. It's a local government's commitment by saying that we will take responsibility for this habitat and we will take care of the species that depend on it. And we will be part of something bigger than ourselves. Cities can have important roles to make these differences. First of all, they manage land and water, they shape infrastructure, they support their citizens to be aware of the values of the birds and their habitats. They can also embed biodiversity into urban planning and investment. That is real leadership, and that is what gives hope to the flyway. Today, we have 156 flyway network sites across the East Asian Australian flyway, and many of them are overseen by cities. Some cities manage more than one site. But what's equally inspiring is how cities are now connecting across borders through the sister site network. Cities that share the same species, even though they are thousands of kilometers apart, the cities are partnering, exchanging experience, and even co-designing conservation activities together. It's a beautiful reminder that migratory birds don't recognize political boundaries, and neither should our solutions. Through these networks, cities are not only conserving biodiversity locally, but also contributing to flyway-wide conservation. And they are showing what international cooperation looks like at the local level. Migratory birds are, in a way, a messenger. They tell us how healthy our ecosystems are, but they also remind us how connected we are, all from one wetland to another, from one city to the next. As we start this Learning Lab series, I hope we can hold on to that sense of connection and also a sense of responsibility. Each city represented here is part of a bigger story, and each of you has a chance to be a champion to strengthen this journey for life. So thank you again for being here, for your leadership, and for your willingness to learn and act together. I look forward to hearing your stories and reflections today, and also to walking this journey with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yoon, and really also for making that point that these cities and the birds or the species are messengers, the messengers of our ecosystem health, but also what I really liked was this point of the connections between the species and the people, and between the cities, and that we're part of a bigger story. So those are really very valuable and important words, and I'm hoping that or I know that the partnership that we have with yourselves and ourselves is certainly part of that bigger story also, and facilitating that. So we're about to go into the meat of our learning lab, but I just want to, before I introduce our next speakers, just explain to you how we're going to run this. So the idea of these learning labs came as a result of the engagement that we've had with our cities, both the ones that are with Journeys for Life, but also the sister city network that Yoon referred to. Many of them are already part of this program. And there was a real need expressed for engaging with experts. Cities like having peer exchanges amongst themselves, but they also sometimes have the need for engaging with experts. So we felt that we could get together as a network organization and as an organization that does this and a lot of the time, which is why we're doing these learning networks now. We have a series of this learning labs, and we will share some information on that later. But the first theme was really the point about the passages and the connections, as Yoon referred to earlier. So we're going to start off by listening to the experts who will talk from different fields of expertise around the threats that are faced by migratory species, particularly birds. And then we will have inputs from our local leaders from several cities that we have gathered. We'll have a different set of cities in the afternoon session on Thursday, simply because of the different time zones, and we're trying to accommodate time zones in the west and in the east. And we'll hear on the ground experiences of some of the solutions, but also some of the barriers and challenges that they've followed. And then following these two sets of presentations, we're opening it for a more interactive session where we will have questions and answers, both between the experts and the cities, but also between cities. And it's really, so the idea is, in the word learning lab, is to learn and to share learnings also amongst ourselves. And with these short introductory words, it's a real pleasure for me to introduce somebody that I've known for quite a while in different spaces, Tej Munkiord. He is a PhD. He lives in Arnhem, the Netherlands, but Tej is somebody that is an expert in different aspects of nature conservation. He's worked on various assignments, from wetlands to waterbird monitoring, to flyways across the different wetlands. He's also part of the World Coastal Forum. He's part of the technical subcommittee on EAAFP. He teaches conservation, and he's a specialist. I refer to the fact that he's a doctor, and his specialization is waterbird ecology. But he also has a master's degree in microbiology. So Tej, you are very well qualified, also very well traveled, both virtually and physically. You are originally from India, but now living in Europe. So you've seen migratory species and nature and ecosystems from different aspects. And I'm going to hand over to you first, and then I'll hand over to our next speaker. So Tej, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I get very scared when I hear the word expert, because I think we are all learning. And so it's a pleasure to be here at this learning lab, because we are learning together about the experiences that different people and agencies have around the world in dealing with conservation, with management, both in urban and in rural settings. It's a pleasure to talk to you a little bit about the threats that are faced by migratory birds. And I'm very glad that I'm following on from the presentation and the speech by Ms. Yoon Lee, who's from the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership, because she has introduced the issue very well. And I'll go into a little more detail now, if I can get my presentation to start, which is always a challenge with two screens. And I hope you are able to see my screen.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
We have a beautiful bird in the background.
Yes, that's that's the Pallas's gull, one of the largest gulls in Eurasia. Okay, why is this not starting? It started earlier when we tried. Oops, let me go back to the share screen. Apologies for this.
There you are. Now you just need to get it into presentation mode.
Yes. Okay, I think I'm sharing my wrong screen. Share again. Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Desk 2. Share. Okay.
There you are. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Super. Well, thanks again for the opportunity to speak. And I'm going to talk about a bird here in this picture. This is the black-tailed godwit, which flies around our house, around many cities, and is found in both urban and rural environments and in the wild. This is a migratory species which depends on good management of grasslands and pasture lands around cities where they breed, and then they migrate south to coastal habitats that are around many wetlands or many wetlands of cities and rural areas. So it's really a species that connects the rural habitats across the world as well as the urban habitats. So it's a good species to start with. But I'm not focusing on species. I'm focusing on the threats that we have. And as was mentioned already, one of the big threats, unfortunately, that birds have to deal with are people. And as people have increased across the world, the concentrations of people in urban and semi-urban areas are both in inland areas and in coastal areas. This is one map that shows a prediction to 2030, where you can see where the main concentrations are across Asia, Africa, and the Americas, but particularly in Asia, because as we know, there's a big starting point here with a large number of people that depend on coastal and inland areas. And many of these birds are migrating through these areas. Very recently, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said that there is a triple planetary crisis, and in that he refers to the fact that humanity currently faces three major issues. One is climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. And this is also the opportunity for us to act together to deal with all these three issues. And if we have to look at where people are living, we know from the map of the 2015 World Coastal Cities map that 40% of the world's people live within 100 kilometers of the coast. And this map is an unusual one in terms of its projection. But down here at the bottom, perhaps you can see the map for Asia focused in on the large red areas, which are areas of high concentrations of people. So if we are to deal with biodiversity conservation, we need to deal with managing people and their activities in such a way that we can find harmony in doing so. As Yun mentioned in the previous, in her introduction, we are dealing with migratory birds, and in order to simplify our lives, we have divided the world into what we call flyways, which is basically the migratory routes of the birds from their breeding areas, which are often up in the Arctic, right across the world. And then after breeding here, they migrate south to escape the northern winter and come down to Southeast Asia, to Australasia, and in the Americas to Latin America, that's South and Central America, and in the African Eurasian flyways down to Africa. And in between the Central Asian flyway here in green, their birds come down to the Indian subcontinent. So this is how we divide the flyways across the world. But importantly, we can see that these flyways are interconnected, which means that we have the opportunity for collaboration and cooperation between flyways to conserve migratory birds, because we need to ensure that birds have safe stopping and resting points all along their migration in order for them to be able to continue this annual migration. And as we are learning, many of these areas that the birds depend on are coastal cities in many flyways. And so working with cities to ensure that they are managing their habitats, restoring their habitats, will make place for both birds and people. So what are these major threats and risks to birds, and therefore, how can we deal with them? The major risk, unfortunately, is the loss of habitat. This could be forest, grassland, scrubland, wetland, and even deserts, because many cities are also surrounded by deserts, and these deserts also hold unique habitats for birds. So basically, any habitat around the world is a habitat for birds. And so managing these habitats for birds also means we are managing these habitats for other biodiversity. And the loss of these habitats are a problem for the birds, but also for the people. We also have learned that with human development, urban, industrial, and agricultural chemicals and poisons are taking their toll on bird life, human life, and therefore these pose a greater risk where there is increased human activity because the number and volumes of these chemicals are increased. We've all learned that plastic pollution is one of the growing problems, and I'll come back to some of these in the subsequent slides. Collision and electrocution with power lines and wind turbines is another major threat to migratory species. Collision due to glass and reflective surfaces of birds flying into buildings is turning out to be another cause for concern. And that's in the daytime, but at night, the disorientation due to the bright city lights causes lots of problems for birds, and I'll come back to this. And it's not only at night, it's also in the day where increasingly many cities and buildings are using reflective surfaces. As you can see here, you are looking at a building, but the reflection shows you the entire landscape around this building. And the birds flying around here mistake the glass as open areas and fly into them and are being killed in large numbers. And as more reflective glasses are being put, these birds are flying into larger numbers, and I'll come back to that. I'll spend a second to just mention about wetlands and coastal habitats, because as we are talking about urban cities, we are seeing that there is a huge decline in all types of coastal habitats, coastal wetlands here. I won't go into the details of this, but I'm just drawing attention to this new report that was produced by the Convention on Wetlands, which met in July. And this new global wetland outlook shows the problems and the changes, mainly the declines in habitat all around the world. Regardless of whether these are coastal wetlands or inland wetlands, these are being lost at different rates. So we need to pay attention to this and see how we can deal with this in managing wetlands around and within cities. Moving on to some of the direct problems that the birds are having, pollution is a growing concern. Here you can see white storks. These birds migrate usually from Europe down to Africa, but as urban pollution is providing new food sources for these birds are stopping their migration in southern Europe, depending on these large waste areas, and in doing so are not continuing their migration to areas where they would depend on natural food, and through eating this polluted food are being polluted, and this is affecting their reproduction as well. So we are, through adding pollution, both affecting the birds directly through plastic, but also making the conditions worse for them in terms of their health of the birds. And this is recognized by the CMS, and this was a recent report that CMS produced, which talked about the impacts of plastic pollution on freshwater, aquatic, and terrestrial animals and avian species, focused on the Asia and Pacific region. And you can download this report, which really is a real eye-opener, and it's really a worry to see how this is increasing so rapidly, and we are unable to deal with this in a really time-bound manner. Another challenge is light pollution, and this, again, with the increase in urbanization, has meant that this is a growing problem, and one estimate is that at least 23% of the planet's surface now is being affected by an artificial glow, which is produced by human production of lights. And these lights don't affect just migratory birds. They attract these birds and then disorient them during their migration. And this then causes them to collide into different objects, particularly buildings. And as we have taller and larger buildings, the birds are flying into these buildings and are being killed. But it's not just the birds. We are also seeing that other forms of biodiversity are being affected by these lights. For example, turtle hatchlings, which are emerging on the beaches, are then being disoriented by the lights, and they aren't able to go out into the ocean, and they often travel onto roads where they are being killed or being eaten by dogs or other predators. And the problems go on with artificial lights. And this is an example where fireflies, as you probably remember, are lovely lighted animals or insects that you see at night. These fireflies are being outshone by these artificial lights, and that affects their life and their reproduction. As well as we're learning that coral that is growing close to the coast where there is artificial light, it's inhibiting their reproduction. And bats, which live and operate mainly at night, artificial lights are causing their habitats to be fragmented and destroyed. So we're getting less bats, and bats are eating insects. They are fertilizing and pollinating our plants. And so we are losing bats, we are losing plants, and we are losing biodiversity as a whole because of light pollution. So light pollution, although the talk talks about it in relation to birds, I'm just trying to make it clear that this is a much wider issue that we need to deal with. If we come back to birds, we are learning that some of these collisions with birds can be quite impactful on the populations, with millions of birds being killed through collision with buildings. And it's believed and estimated that up to 1 billion birds may be killed by collision with buildings in the Americas every year. The birds die through collision, either instantly or have damage to their body and may die later. They become more susceptible to predators because of that, including cats or other urban predators. With an increase in light, particularly lights that are focused up into the sky, as you can see here at the World Trade Center Memorial Light, you're having what's called the beacon effect, where all these white spots are birds flying. They're attracted by the lights, and rather than continue their migration, they're going around in circles, which tires them. They run out of food, and so their journeys are being affected through these bright lights. And as a result of losing energy, they have a higher risk of collision with urban structures. And for example, this is the view of Houston from the air. You can see how widespread the lights are. And this kind of map could be shown for any city in the world. More and more lights are being spread across, and many of these lights are pointing up as well, so the birds are being affected. One of the other urban challenges is that due to transportation, on the sides of the highways, we often have glass panels or other reflective panels, and large numbers of birds are flying into these panels. These are highways within cities, but also highways that connect cities and other urban areas. And a number of studies have been initiated in the last years, and all these studies are showing us the huge impact these are having on these birds. This is some information from Korea, where a lot of good studies have been undertaken. I won't go into the details, but you can see in terms of numbers, these are very large numbers of birds, millions of birds flying into buildings and hundreds of thousands flying into noise barriers, which is on the high sides of highways and expressways and other roads. Again, with urbanization and the need for electricity, there is a larger number of electric lines, high tension wires and medium tension wires that are strung out across the landscape towards cities and within and around cities. And this is having a huge impact through collision of the birds into these power lines, as well as electrocution. So these are killing many, many birds, and studies all around the world are showing the impact they're having on both threatened species of birds as well as the commoner species of birds. So this is something we need to think about. And finally, another collision risk is through wind turbines. Wind power is known to be a green form of energy, but if it is placed in ways and locations where birds are migrating and flying through, we are seeing that large numbers of birds are being killed of all species, birds as well as bats. And more studies are being undertaken to show how birds are being affected. And this, I won't go into the detail here. This is something that I received just yesterday. It's a detailed study of the birds' movements, tracking of these birds, and you can see that most of the fixes, which is the locations of these marked birds, are in the height range of these wind turbines, both if the birds are flying and if you compare the birds to other flights, so of aircraft, both when they are taking off and when they are up in flight, you can see that these birds are flying quite high, but they are mainly flying in an area where they are within, let's say, the range of these wind turbines. So where wind turbines are being placed, how they are being operated, needs serious consideration. And as more cities require more energy, we have to be even more careful about where we place these wind turbines. I'll end with a slide about the future and the present, and this is following on from the talk of Yun. The East Asian Oscillation Flyway Network identifies sites of international importance for migratory birds. And as you can see, many of these sites are on and close to cities. And the number of network sites that we currently have is 156, but we could expect that there would be more than 1,000 sites here in green that are internationally important for migratory water birds. And as we try and protect these migratory water birds, we need to think about the actions needed in cities and around cities to connect these sites better, to protect these habitats. I'd like to just mention that the World Migratory Bird Day is an annual event which happens twice a year, in May and in October every year. And in 2022, one of the impacts of urban areas, which is lights, was recognized as a big challenge, and that was the theme for that year. Every year there are different strategies and focus areas for the World Migratory Bird Day, but it's a wonderful opportunity to involve cities, people, adults, and the youth in raising awareness about the birds that we have that travel through our cities and how can we better protect and manage their habitats and the birds themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tej. A rather grim picture, but it also points to how cities can actually play a role and where they should play a role. And just a quick reminder, we did work with the CMS in 2022 and came out with a more practical version of their light pollution guideline. I'm going to ask Jade just to put the link in that in the chat box. So we are running a little bit behind schedule, and without further ado, I want to introduce our next expert, Yang Shufen. She's the Director of Conservation at the Sungai Buloh Wetland Reserve in Singapore. And she's also works in the Conservation Division of the National Parks Board in Singapore. And she's a chair of the ASEAN Flyway Network. So her work in Singapore has really put her in a position to also be an expert here. She's a biologist, and she's going to talk to us about her experiences as an expert when we deal with migratory species in a city-state, Singapore. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you. A very good morning to those joining us from Europe and good afternoon from Singapore. First, let me thank ICLEI for inviting me to this important gathering. It's quite fitting that we are connecting across time zones today, much like the migratory waterbirds that I work with often, that traverse the great distances and boundaries in their incredible journeys that Yon and Dr. Tej has shared. Just as Tej has shared, I don't see myself really as an expert in this issue, but really someone who have heard a lot about these issues and felt a very strong sense of urgency that we need to do something about it. And each one of us in every small little way and in whatever position we can be in. So I wear a few hats in this area of work as introduced. So I'm currently a director of conservation in a site. It's in Sungai Buloh Wetland Reserve. I'm also the Singapore's national focal point for the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership, and I currently serve as the chair for the ASEAN Flyway Network. So I really think what brings these roles together is a shared passion to protect the migratory waterbirds and their habitats, whether we're working at the local level in Singapore, nationally or regionally and internationally. So maybe let me start with something more positive. It was something very exciting for Singapore that we discovered recently from our long-term scientific and monitoring work. So satellite tracking data of the migratory waterbirds has shown that Singapore sits at a fascinating intersection, right where the East Asian Australasian Flyway meets the Central Asian Flyway. Thanks to Dr. Tej for providing the map earlier. And this has really opened our eyes to Singapore's role in these critical migratory pathways as a small city-state. And this is also published in the scientific journal in Nature Communications some time ago. That what's so remarkable is the 10 common redshanks and one of the 5 birds, both shorebird species that we track from Singapore, undertook an extraordinary journey directly over the Himalayas to reach their breeding grounds in the north in their migration journey. And the study provided the first-hand information on this remarkable trans-Himalayan migration strategy, demonstrating for the first time that shorebirds wintering in Southeast Asia can use both flyways. And that spells a lot of implications for conservation and international collaboration. So as you can imagine, in being a small, densely populated island city-state, we do not have other hinterland to go to. It means we face some real challenges in how to balance urban development, sustainability with conservation, challenges that many cities and countries around the world share. We're dealing with habitat fragmentation, urban pollution, and climate change impacts, as Dr. Tej has shared very extensively in the earlier presentation, and the pressure on stopover sites, etc. And so, in response to that, locally, we have been trying to develop strategies to address some of these challenges. And 5 years ago, in 2020, our Minister for National Development had launched in Singapore what we call the Sungai Buloh Nature Park Network as part of Singapore's broader city in nature vision. It forms one of the key pillars in 5 to address long-term climate change resilience and impact. This network creatively connects even small sites within the northwestern part of Singapore, one of the largest remaining freshwater marshes in Singapore, one of the largest mudflats in Singapore, as well as small little buffer parks that together forms the longest contiguous coastal intertidal areas, with the only nature reserve right in the middle as a core conservation strategy. And the buffer areas are crafted with a strategy where we allow public to enjoy nature recreation, while the core is reserved for research as well as for a sanctuary for species to as a refuge. So concurrently recognizing that impacts are continuing coming in, there are coastal areas that are experiencing erosion over time, and also with the erratic rainfall, with flooding as one of the key concerns. Also recognizing that traditional hard engineering approaches alone aren't sufficient for coastal protection in our climate, we have been implementing nature-based solutions. We built on a successful project that we did at one of the offshore islands in 2020. And recently we have developed projects in one of the buffer park next to Sungai Buloh that demonstrates how we can actually enhance coastal resilience while protecting critical habitats. And what's amazing about this buffer area is a hybrid engineering solution that retains all the original mangrove areas, allowing lots of migratory waterbirds egrets to boost on it. At the same time, the reforestation of the buffer zone is done entirely with the community. And over 5 years, we have planted 2,000 overplants with a few hundreds of community. We think that it's particularly inspiring and critical in all our work in terms of conservation of migratory waterbirds to involve community through initiatives like the 1 Million Tree Program or Restoration Program. And it also brings together the private sector as well, where they come in and companies do want to play their social responsibility. And Sungai Buloh is actually located in one of Singapore's heavy industry area. We're surrounded by raw metal recycling plants, we're surrounded by industry, and we want to work with each and every one of the companies to demonstrate that you can have sustainable and clean operations of businesses. So, however, we also understand that whatever conservation work that you do in just your city or in your country, for migratory animals, it's a little bit trickier. It is not found in your place, in your site all year round, and therefore it brings and spurs Singapore and Sungai Buloh to step out of our boundary to look at the regional picture. And this is why the ASEAN Flyway Network matters a lot. And Yoon from EAFP and Dr. Tej has shared about the amazing flyway of the East Asian Australasia. And Southeast Asia is an important part harboring these animals that pass through year after year. And a couple of years ago, as we come together on the international platform, we also noticed that there exist data gaps and capacity building within the Southeast Asia countries. Therefore, we actually initiated the ASEAN Flyway Network in 2017 under the ASEAN Working Group on Nature Conservation and Biodiversity, with a very clear mission that we want to protect wetlands and migratory waterbirds across Southeast Asia. And what makes the network special as a design is a focus on connecting people with the objective to build capacity. And this is reflected in the structure that we have designed in this network. It is consisted of core members from all ASEAN member countries. Specifically, we wrote to request that members should be the people who work on wetlands and migratory waterbirds at the national level. And at the same time, we took a deliberate design to include a second circle of bubble that includes the local site managers in various cities, institutions, NGOs, academics, and international organizations to support and to work together collectively. If it's just from the government sector, then there will be no communication and lack of collaboration for effectiveness. And decisions are based on consensus, which means we are really focused on cooperation and knowledge sharing. And it is also reported to the senior environment officials, allowing us to mobilize resources, and to hear the concerns from the ground. So I'm pleased to share some of the recent achievements since our inception. Just this May, we held our first CPA Learning Forum and workshop right here in Singapore. That it's the very first one for the ASEAN Planning Network that consists of 39 focal point site managers and practitioners across 10 ASEAN countries, very generously supported by the government of New Zealand. And it was wonderful to see the engagement and collaboration. And it was nice that Dr. Tej ended with the last slide on World Migratory Bird Day. So Singapore celebrated the spring edition of World Migratory Bird Day by having a day out for our practitioner, for them to critique and to review how can we do better to increase awareness to the larger public, using World Migratory Bird Day as a really wonderful event and platform. And in terms of conservation, we have also been expanding our network of protected sites. So it was good that the earlier presentation shared about where are all the flyway network sites. So this ASEAN Flyway Network, since its inception, has designated a new site. Myanmar has added 5, and we have nominations in progress from Malaysia, Thailand, and Laos. And to address the data gap, we received funding generously from Japan to survey 45 sites across ASEAN with very good, excellent technical guidance from Dr. Tej, and partnering Wetlands International as an international organization to help us identify priority wetlands and where are the important bird populations. And along with that are also species conservation. And therefore, looking ahead to 2028, the regional initiative has a bold but structured plan that has just been endorsed. So this is really fresh. The endorsed concept note forward focus on 3 key pillars. We would like to sustain a well-functioning network because that is something critical in conservation initiatives through regular meetings and forums. We have a very strong secretariat support from the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, supporting the network for long-term viability. Secondly, we will be crafting a strategic action plan with regional consultation and national level consultations while continuing our strong participation in the EAFP meeting of partners. Thirdly, we have identified that enhancing our communication, education, and public awareness outcomes through capacity training, education and public awareness is going to be very key in pushing the success of this network in the next 5 years. And that includes deploying regional experts to different flyway network sites and having sister sites exchanges as well. So with that, I think while our flyways and our birds that depend on them face significant challenges from climate change and habitat loss, I'm continually inspired by what's possible when people work together. And as many of the speakers have shared how inspiring and how important it is that to be connected and to work together, we are seeing innovative solutions, new partnerships form, and communities more engaged. So migratory species, migratory water birds don't recognize borders. So our conservation efforts can't either. And what I've learned from this work is really that besides the animals, they are certainly at the heart of it. It's also about the people, the places, and a shared vision for our future. And specifically for my favorite habitat, wetlands, it serves as very critical urban buffers in the cities. They are biodiversity hotspot, and they are also deeply meaningful to our communities culturally. So when we protect them, we're actually strengthening the resilience of our cities and our communities. So let's keep building those bridges between our cities, across disciplines, and our communities. So together, I hope that we can ensure these incredible journeys for life continue for generations to come. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Yang. And we're going to move over now to our next session. I'm going to ask where we have our cities intervention. I'm going to ask Dr. Mignon Yu. She is from Yeongching Imjen River Biosphere, where she's the reserve manager, which is in Yeongching County in South Korea. Mignon, I'm handing over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for introduction, Ingrid. I'm so sorry for that sound. I will share my presentation at first. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so excited to share how our city is moving toward becoming a true nature-based city. My presentation is titled Journey to a Nature-Based City, Yeoncheon. Here is the outline of my presentation. First, I will introduce our city, Yeoncheon County. Do you know what this stone is? It's not just any stone, it's an Acheulean hand axe. Homo erectus used this tool around 300,000 years ago at Jeongguk in Yeoncheon. This was the first one ever discovered in Asia in 1977. It changed the history of archaeology worldwide. Additionally, this discovery shows that Yeoncheon was an ideal place for prehistoric humans and animals to live. Yeoncheon has two main rivers, the Imjin and the Hantan. These rivers come from North Korea, cross DMZ, and flow through Yeoncheon County. They were formed by volcanic eruption during the Cenozoic era. As a result, there are not only many streams, wetlands, and columnar joints along the river, but also plains and mountains. Thanks to this rich environment, Yeoncheon is home to birds and many other species. However, many people did not realize how precious nature is in their city. Yeoncheon is located near the DMZ, and along the rivers there are several habitats, geosites, and cultural heritage sites. Because of this, Yeoncheon was designated as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve and Global Geopark. We are a multi-international designated areas by UNESCO, and Yeoncheon County aims for integrated management. Our main goal is sustainable development. To achieve this, we have established a management plan and are implementing it step by step to create a nature-based city. We also joined global initiatives such as ICLEI, EAFP, and most recently Journeys for Life. Since 2021, we have been monitoring biodiversity with a focus on birds. We collaborate with the NGO BUZZ Korea and Korean national institutions. As a result, we have discovered more endangered species living in Yeoncheon. To protect them, we have expanded protected areas. Yeoncheon is a border region, and after the Korean War, the entire area became a military protection zone. This has limited development in Yeoncheon compared to the other cities. Currently, about 93% of the areas are still a military protection zone. As a result, when we applied for the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve designation, we applied the OECM concept. Although this zone wasn't meant for conservation, its limited development has made Yeoncheon a vital habitat for biodiversity. However, many people still believe that biodiversity only exists in the DMZ. To address this, we try to show them that other areas are also important. We started a BioBlitz in collaboration with several organizations. And last year, we also held events for teachers and public officials because their role is very important in the region. And new waves started last year. Local artists created kinetic artwork and postcards of cranes at the tourism center. And one of my colleagues, a festival expert, prepared the treasure hunt game and asked me, "What bird do you want people to know about?" So I answered, scarlet-sided mergangers. So that bird was included in the quiz. And during the game, my colleagues answered the bird question right away, even though they had never learned about birds or had any interested in them before joining the tourism department. And that really touching me. And this year, my director and a festival expert suggested setting up a larger promotion booth at the Yeonchan Priority Festival, one of the most popular and largest festivals in the city. My team had started with a small booth last year, and they encouraged us to expand it. So we prepared exhibitions about UNESCO designated areas and ICLEI and EAFP, as well as the nature of Yeonchan, and we highlighted the theme, Yeonchan, a nature-based city. And children could make crane paper toys, and we also developed an AR photo experience about birds and other species. When they finished the activities at our booth, they received a stamp. And this year, we also created new waves through collaboration with the Jeongguk Prehistoric Museum. They added Yeonchan species to the permanent exhibition to showcase its unique biodiversity. And they also created museum merchandise featuring birds and animals in Yeonchan. And in addition, the county developed a local grain package with cranes on the box. We also promote awareness through social media and by hosting exhibitions to familiarize people with nature-related topics. This year, we installed new interpretive panels about the Biosphere Reserve in ICLEI and Cities with Nature, GCOM, and EAFP at 3 locations. The Hantan River camping site is one of the most popular tourist attractions in Yeonchan. I believe these panels play an important role in reaching people who are not yet aware of nature, and not only those who are already interested. I've shared Yeonchan's story. Before I close, I want to share one more thought. As a researcher, I thought leaders were the key to change. But as a manager, I realized to become a nature-based city, we need onlookers. They can grow into supporters, creators, and leaders, and we can achieve this through multi-level governance. And that's why we build partnerships with ICLEI and NGOs, universities, and companies. Our first example of multi-level governance is the Jeongguk Wetland Restoration Project. This will be a long-term journey. The main challenges are budget and legal rules. So we will begin with a workshop together with local people in this Saturday. And we have held many workshops with local people since 2013. At the beginning, they were only participants, but now they have become leaders and starting new waves such as the forum. And now it's time to focus on the next generation. So from last year, we started to focus on students, and we want them to truly value their city's nature and to grow with it. This October, we will hold the Global Forum with ICLEI Korea, and we will invite students to participate. And just 2 weeks ago, we ran a program with our partners, and the students really loved it. And I believe this will be a new wave in Yeonchan and in Korea, and your interest and support would mean a lot. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Minyon. And I believe we have now been joined by Mayor Hamad, who's the mayor of Varsana in Iran. Mayor, I believe you've been hopping from one meeting to the next, so we really appreciate your presence here, and I would like to hand over to you to present the challenges that you have from Varsana.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Mayor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, at first, so sorry about that because I have a lot of meeting today about some project. uh, about this ceremony that we'll have in my city. So I want to start about my presentation about the role of urban management to protect migratory birds and challenges in a Varzane. I sent you my PowerPoint. Could you show?
Jade, ask you
Yes,
to do that.
just
Thanks.
find it quick. So-
Maya, while we wait for her to do that, if you can just say a few words so long about where your city is. Just introduce your city so long. There it comes. Okay.
Okay. Okay. At first, hello everyone. I want to speak at first about my city. The city of Varzane, it's located in the southeast of Isfahan in the center of Iran's plateau. Actually, Varzane is the closest city from the Gulf Huni wetland as one of the Ramsar site wetland in Iran and near the desert, Dasht Kavir. We have a lot of item about cultural and also historical background. I want to pass about this slide, but I just want to focus about some item about my city that make us unique from other city. For example, wear women white hijab or chador because it's really referred to the climate and also about the historic background, my city back to pre-Islamic times. And we could show this item from the lot of monument in this city, like a comprehensive mosque. Another item that it's really um, great for us, in especially in my city, it's about the tourism. Because as an ancient city, we have a lot of monument for attract tourism, and also in a peak of time, in a high season, we have a lot of visiting from all over the world that wants to visit the Varzane. In Varzane, we have three items of environment: a desert, a wetland, and also the river. Varzane is located at the end of central river in Iran. The name is Zayan Derud. The route is from the west of Iran, from Zagros mountain, and the end is in a Varzane, in a wetland, in a Gulf Kuni wetland. And also near the wetland, we have a sand hill and desert that it's one of top item of my city and unique of my city that attract a lot of visitor to my city. However, I want to focus about the Gulf Uni and about the treating that happened from that year, and also a lot of item of this wetland. You know that Gulf Puni is one of the main wetland in Iran, in the center of Iran, close the desert and end of the river of the Zayan Derud. And it's a more than 140 kilometer. This is the area, and it's really biggest from the other wetland in Iran or close of that. And Gulf Huni, in the Gulf Huni, there are a lot of birds and a lot of species that lived from this environment basin. It's really amazing when Golf Pony, for example, in some season like summer or early spring, there are a lot of birds, especially migratory birds from the south of Russia and north of Iran, comes to here. This picture, it's about the Black Mountain in Gulf Khuni is one of the famous environmental monument in the Gulf Khuni, and the flamingos in the Gulf Khuni. That picture it's from this spring. Actually, this map it's about the relation of Gulf Khuni and other item of the city and also other item of our region because Gulf Khuni it's really has a significant relation with the life of people, lifestyle, their lifestyle, like a white hijab that I show you. In 2022, Varzane candidate as a wetland city, and it's really great for us in a COP14. We awarded from this and selected as a wetland city. We are in a first wetland city in Iran, and it's really great for us because Gulf Khuni has a lot of problem, especially about the environment, and a lot of treating from the some happen from about of especially about some governors or something like this. However, a main problem and it's about the migratory birds in a Gulf Pony because there are a lot of species in a Gulf Pony like flamingos, the main one, dogs, plucking, and some other one. More than 57 species that sometimes for some, especially for some season, greatest 1,700 flamingos comes to this area. And it's really make amazing sound when all of that wants to feeding and something like this. However, there are a lot of things, but the main one is the drying of the wetland is the main one, and also water scarcity about this region, dust storm, and also about the biodiversity, and also some strategies from governors or something like that, because they sometimes they open doom of the Zion Road rarely because we really have faced with a lack of water. However, we could add another thing like increase of population and use a lot of water and also some um, some introverted about environment, about the people, and also some local people as indigenous that, for example, want to hunt in a high season, especially about the flamingos. But after we selected as a wetland city, one of the wetland city, and before that, you have a lot of NGOs that really work about the environment. I want to focus about that more than about the situation, about the sustainable. So I passed this slide rapidly. We held a lot of ceremony in Varzane about a lot of time, in lot of time, like um, environment time in Iran or Environment Day, Wetlands Day, and also a lot of brainstorming working group for speaking about the wetland and also about the migratory birds, because we believe that if we could educate to a new generation, it's really as a sustainable urban management could help us. For example, we start a plan about the a student mayor, and in this plan, we share a student to think about as a mayor to how to conservative about or how to protect about the migratory birds, about the wetland, about their region. It's really could help us because when we started this plan from 5 years ago, now we have faced with a lot of education student or graduate student that want to keep on in environment field or major. Uh, for example, last week um, we held a free workshop about the wetland with name of the new generation and wetland history. In this workshop, we start to speak about some legend and some history about the wetland, and just to elderly people to share this story with a student, and also speak about the some um, experience and also some memory about the birds in a wetland that they saw before. And in the end, or as a result, all of us signed a contract with the name of saving flamingos. On the other part, or on the understand, we focus about the age of group. For example, 6 to 12 years, we focus about this topic, and also for elderly people 13 to 18 and also more than about that. We divided about the awareness focus activities and the rule, and we have a meeting every month with together, or 2 times in a month with together with this group to speak about how we could protect our environment, especially about the flamingos and migratory birds. I sent a video from that women go to the wetland and make a flamingos we together as a group. Mm, When we record a video from the top, they shape a flamingos because they want to show these flamingos and women as empowering or empowerment strategies. It's really has a related with together from the history. It's not about the today. And you can see about our focus and activities about different ages. And as I told you, it's really about our action plan for every generation to support and also protect about the wetland and also about the Gulf. The main thing about the migratory birds. Thank you for attention. I'm so sorry for speak maybe rapidly.
Thank you so much, Mayor Hamad. I hope you can stay a few seconds. I'll tell you why. Between your presentation and that Mignon from Yongchen did, we've actually heard a lot. We've learned a lot. We've learned about the whole spectrum of challenges and also some really interesting solutions. So in your case, I'm going to ask Tej Munkyar, who's was one of our first expert, although he made the point he's learning all the time. And I think today was a good example of how we learn every day. You talked about some really interesting challenges. You talked about the pollution, the problems you have with pollution, power line collisions, water salinity. You're in a very dry, arid environment. So Tej, just, with against your experience and your knowledge, and you also are a wetlands expert, do you have any either questions or advice to Mayor Hamad in terms of their amazing Gavkani wetland? Tej?
Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to commend Mayor Hamad Asgar for the presentation and also to congratulate you on becoming a wetland city. This is really wonderful. I've not had the opportunity to visit this wetland, but I've certainly visited Iran and seen other wetlands. And I think that the work that's being done to raise awareness through what you've mentioned is really wonderful, because you have got targeted programs for different age groups, which means you're starting with raising awareness, interest, and love for wetlands and biodiversity, and then leading on to actions and empowering society to be involved in conserving these habitats. This is really very important. In terms of offering suggestions, you've mentioned about the importance of water and the fact that you are in a desert and you are surrounded yet by a very important wetland, which is important for water birds, but also clearly of importance for the people of the city, and the need to manage these wetlands as a source of water, but also as an opportunity perhaps to look at how urban wetlands can be used to treat wastewater in order to deal with water conservation and recycling of water. And this could be something that you have already got plans for, and I'll be very happy to discuss further with you and others after this meeting. But one of the challenges of living in deserts and in desert-like conditions is that water is the source of life. And we need to think about how we better manage and use the water as a precious resource for the current and future generations.
Thank you so much, Tej. Very wise words. And I like the fact that you say, in the spirit of learning, discuss further with the mayor. I think that's a really great offer. Thank you. My next question is to both Yang and Yoon, and it's in relation to the Yongcheng site, where there's obviously a very different environment, a different set of challenges, and where tourism is a very big part of the picture. So just from your experiences, both Yoon with the EAAFP, but also Yang, within the Singapore experience, any advice or any reflections that you would like to make on the presentation from Yongcheng, please? Let's start with Yoon and then we'll have Yang.
Thank you, Ingrid. Yes, thank you for Dr. Yu Mi-yeon, the Yeoncheon Imjin River Biosphere Manager, about this great work that Yeoncheon has done for the conservation of the biosphere reserve area. And for this tourism related, I think there are a lot of things that Yeoncheon can share with other sites in the flyway. Yeoncheon has joined the flyway network site as a 156, actually the latest flyway network site in the flyway. We're really happy to have Yeoncheon. So as the recent flyway network site, and also your relationship not only with the AFP but also UNESCO and and other designation process. Other sites, we hear that they would like to also learn from other fly network sites. How can they also take the process to designate the fly network sites and also UNESCO Biosphere Reserve? So please, we would like to invite Yeoncheon to other, opportunities and platforms so for peer learning for other sites, because each site has a different challenges, but also there are some shared challenges that you can share with the other cities. So I would like to welcome Yeoncheon to be in our also EAFP or ICLEI's platforms to share these experiences. The shared learning is very important for all the Fly Network sites. Thank you. Over to you, Ingrid.
Thanks, Yoon. And again, I like that spirit of let's continue this learning journey. And with those words, Yang, any reflections from your experiences perspective?
Thank you. And thank you, Myeon Yoon from Yongchun. I learned a lot from the challenges that you have on the Biosphere Reserve. And before I try to give my 2 pointers on the tourism part, I must say that I think when you mention your challenges of the military protection zone and then adopting an OECM concept, I think it's very practical, pragmatic, keeping the outcome in mind, as it is also a common challenge in Southeast Asia sites, wetlands, where we are working with different countries according to their context of the wetlands, with the same common goal that as long as we follow the ecological principles of saving the site and then matching it to the community, then it doesn't matter which level of protections or gazettement they give them, depending on the context. So I thought that there was a very good sharing. And in terms of tourism, because the Sungai Buloh Wetland Reserve, we do not really promote ecotourism per se, but I see a lot of similarities in your interesting outreach programs where you reach out to a range of stakeholders. You call them the onlookers. I think they are very interesting as they are supporters, creators, and I also truly believe that. And similar to Yoon, I think we welcome you to the Flurry Network site. Hope to catch up with you, maybe in person if we meet at the upcoming mock meeting so that we can learn more. Thank you.
Thank you, Yang. And it's amazing how, excuse the pun, we have so much cross-pollination here between the different sites in different parts of the world. And it makes me really, really excited. So I think what I want to do now, unfortunately, we've reached the end of our time. I think when one is in a situation of learning, you can never have enough time, but unfortunately, people are busy. It's been a very, very rich discussion. I certainly want to thank all our speakers, but I want to use this opportunity also to say this was just an appetizer to show you the little tippy tip of the iceberg when it gets to migratory species, and to invite all of those cities out there that have not yet joined Journeys for Life, are not part of our network, which we share also with EAAFP, and we have very good relations also with both the Convention on Migratory Species and on wetlands and other major organizations and networks such as the World Coastal Forum with TEJ, to invite you to join this amazing journey. Our next webinar, we do have a webinar this Thursday afternoon, which is exactly the same focus, the sort of appetizer, the passage, the journeys that we're taking. But the remainder in the series of Journeys for Life, we're going to do more deep dives, and that series will be restricted just to those cities that are already part of Journeys for Life and the sister cities part of the EAAFP. So please take a pic of that QR code, join us. You can reach out to Jade or Ivana or myself. And I just want to again thanks all of the people that joined us today, but specifically also our cities and our experts and our partners. Thank you, everybody. Have a rest of the good day, and goodbye to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
May
Thanks.
the learning continue.
Yes, the journey will. For sure. Thanks.